If you're a golfer with lower back pain, you want to pay close attention to this video. Today, we're going to be working on hip mobility, right? What we find is that when the hip joints don't rotate well or they're tight, it causes excessive activity, stress, and strain on the lower back muscles. So more times than not, I would say a large majority of the time, we find that when a golfer has lower back pain, injuries, or issues with golf, that the hips are to blame for that due to a lack of mobility. So I'm with Bruce Gonzaga here, my partner at FitGolf, another coach. What we're going to do is we're going to test him and see if his hips have good range of motion. Once and if we see that his hip doesn't have good range of motion, we know that a great solution for his lower back pain and stiffness is going to be addressing hip mobility. So let's start with a test. It's called the lower quarter rotation test. And what we do, and what I want you to do at home, is set up a 6-iron and make it parallel or flat on another surface. So in this case, you can see we have an exercise mat. I put the bottom of the club face of the 6-iron right on that mat, and that gives us a 60-degree angle, which will come into play in a second. So Bruce, what I'm going to have him do, we're going to start going right. You're going to set your right foot perpendicular to the club and have your left foot right there. That's perfect. Now with your left heel up, what he's going to do is he's going to rotate his pelvis, his hips, as far to the right as he can 3 times. All right, so you get a couple repetitions to loosen up and find your range of motion, and then one more here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this alignment stick, put it across his hips, all right? And you can step away, Bruce. Now, what we want to see is 60 degrees, which essentially, because the 6-iron lies 60 degrees, it would be parallel, with rotation parallel with the mat. And what we can see here is that he's just shy of that, right? So he has less than 60 degrees of rotation through his lower quarter, hip, knee, ankle on his right side. That can cause back pain in his backswing or due to a lack of mobility going back, right, in the swing. So let's start with that. We're going to work on loosening up his right hip, and then we're going to retest and make sure that we get things opened up. The exercises that we're about to do are very simple, low complexity. We'll need a foam roller, maybe a stretch strap, a resistance band, all things that you should be able to do at home that are really going to help you loosen up your hips and take care of your lower back. So Bruce, why don't you grab the foam roller? We're just going to start by foam rolling some of the muscles around the hip, all right? Muscles that rotate the hip specifically. And we're going to start towards the front of the hip. So Bruce is on a muscle called the TFL. So if you take your hip joint where your pocket is, all right, move your hand up and slightly forward, right in that area is where the TFL is. All right, so Bruce is looking for tender spots that feel sensitive and hurt even just a little bit. And he's going to primarily focus his pressure down on those spots, okay? After 30 to 60 seconds of that, Bruce is going to move more towards the side of his hip. So I'm going to have you rotate back a little bit and then just start going up and down. And again, just searching, right? Trying to get a better awareness of what's tight, what's stiff and sensitive around the hip joint. And after about 30 seconds there, Bruce is going to go to the glute, right? So the butt cheek, and you're going to sit up. And he's going to cross his right leg, because we're targeting the right hip, over his left leg, right? Now this one, if your hip's really tight, and if you have back pain, it's going to be very sensitive, very sore, okay? Now what I'll say, the first time you do it is the worst time. It's not going to feel good. But we have clients comment to us and give us feedback every time that after they do it a few times, they'll come back the next week and say, you know, there's times where I'm on it and I don't feel it at all. So if it's really intense, just take it easy, take your time, breathe, right? It's going to help your body relax and just do what you can, okay? So that's a great way to start loosening up the hip, get some blood flow to the region, break up some of the knots around the hip joint so the hip can rotate freer in the stretches that we're going to do, okay? Now, what we're gonna do next with Bruce is we're gonna get his quad stretched out, right? Now, you're gonna lay on your stomach, Bruce, and what we're gonna use for the quad stretch is something like this, all right? It's called a stretch strap. You can get one of these on Amazon for about $5, right? And these are great to have at home. So what we'll do is we'll hook the strap up to his foot. I'm gonna give that over your shoulder, and then he's just gonna pull until he feels a good stretch in the front of his thigh, right? Now, let's keep the knees in. So the most common mistake we see is the leg that we're stretching, that knee will really come out. All right, what we're trying to do here is really keep the knees together, okay? And for this one, we're just gonna hold for 20 to 30 seconds. We'll relax, do it a few times. Now, the quad is a long muscle. You wouldn't think quad is hip, but there's actually one muscle in your quad group that crosses your hip, right? So if the outer quads, called the rectus femoris, is tight, it can actually limit how much you can rotate within the hip joint itself, okay? So we have that. That's a nice, gentle, easy stretch for you guys with a stretch strap. You could also use a towel. If you have a dog leash would work as well. There are a variety of household items that you can use to hook around your foot and give it a good pull. Okay, so now that his quad is stretched out, we're actually going to stretch the rotators of the hip, the glutes, right? So let's do the 90-90 hip rotator stretch. Bruce, face the camera. And what we're going to do is we're going to get your right leg out in front of you. Okay. Why don't you switch that up? Okay. And left leg back. So what we see here is a lot of 90-degree angles, right? If I look at his right knee, it's in line with the hip. That's important. His knee's at 90 degrees. Even his ankle is at 90 degrees. Now let's take a look at your left knee. Let's get that knee lined up with your hips. You just scooch that back. Get that knee at 90 degrees. Get your ankle at 90 degrees. All right? So you're seeing 90-degree angles everywhere. All right. Now let's get your left hand on your right heel. All right. Right hand's in a good position. Key thing here when we're starting is to get your spine nice and long, nice and straight. And from here, without rounding your shoulders, and lean your chest out towards in front of the knee. Good. You feel a good stretch there in the hip? Awesome. We'd hold that 10, 15 seconds once you come back up, right? And we'll repeat that anywhere from 4 to 6 times. Let's see one more. Now, Bruce, show them what it's like to round your shoulders, get them really bad. Now, the stretch just go away there? Right. Yeah. So even though he's lower, he lost the stretch. Now extend your spine, right? Now that his spine is straight, he's feeling the stretch again. That's how spine influences hip. It's all connected, right? After the 90-90 stretch, we're going to do something called prone glute stretch. And it's a lot like what you would think of pigeon in yoga with slight variations. So what you're going to do is get into the prone glute stretch, glutes, okay? So we're going to bring his right knee forward, okay, under it, and then I want you to move your left leg back. Now, what we want to see here is the knee, in this case, his right knee, under his chest. This is unlike the pigeon pose in yoga where we have the knee out and you see the shin perpendicular with the body. We want the right knee under the chest. I know we're stretching the right side. Let's show them with your left hip first so they can get a better visual on this. Right, good. So, knees under his chest. Now, a good way to get it, and this is where we should be feeling, kind of deep in the side of the hip. A good way to increase the stretch, 2 things. Move the right leg further back, in this case. And then B, Bruce, feel like you're sitting back into the side of your left hip. So he's kind of pushing the side of his left hip down and out, which gets a much deeper stretch in the lateral or the side aspect of the hip, right? So far with stretching, we did the quad stretch with the strap. We did the 90-90 hip rotator stretch, and here we're doing the prone glute stretch, which is kind of like pigeon, if you've ever done yoga before. Okay? All right, now, he's all stretched out. We're going to do 2 more things to activate the core, right? We got to get the glutes activated, all right? Got to get some of the abdominals and the obliques activated. When we put all these ingredients together, it's going to lead to better rotation. So, Bruce, I'm going to have you put on the mini band. So he has this ring band, this exercise band. Again, you can see these all over the place. Amazon would just be really cheap, a couple dollars, all right? And the reason why we like using these mini bands for a bridge or a glute exercise is it pushes the glutes to contract and work even harder. So, Bruce, let's get your head up here. So when we're setting up for bridge, this is a glute activation exercise, but it's an awesome exercise for anybody. I don't recommend a lot of exercises for everybody. This is one of them because this can be used in so many ways. It's versatile. So when we're setting up for bridge, we want the heels under the knees. He's got that down, feet hip width apart. He's pushing out on the resistance band, which right away activates the glutes. So feet hip width apart, knees hip width apart, thighs hip width apart, okay? From here, to get the glutes working better and to get the hamstrings out of the bridge movement, we're going to have him lift his toes up. Awesome. Okay, Bruce, from here, you're going to contract your abdominals, you're going to contract your glutes, and then you're going to lift up into a bridge. What we want to see is a straight line, knees, hips, shoulders. You squeeze in his glutes, take a big breath in, big exhale. Very good. So we're taking our time, and then lower. Let's do a couple more. Activate core, glutes. He's up. He's maintaining his width. He's pushing out the band. You feel that in your glutes? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this goes. And the other thing that you're going to feel, this is why I love this exercise. When you lift your hips up, if you're maintaining good core activation and the glutes are doing the shit, you're going to feel a big stretch in your quads and your hip flexors. This is kind of 2 for 1. It's like we're stretching our hip flexors, our quads. We're activating our glutes. This is great for your posture, great for stability, and awesome exercise. So you'd want to do, 2-3 sets of 10 of this. Again, taking your time, get those glutes fired up. All right, next up, we're going to do what's called modified side plank. So Bruce, lay down on your left side. And there's lots of different ways we can side plank, right? This is typically what we're going to start people with, especially people that need more hip stability, range of motion, and have lower back problems. When we set up for a side plank, what we want to see here in this version is we want to avoid getting the knees out in front of us. Let's get the knees back in line with the hips. Even a little bit further. Awesome. Okay, now we want to see elbow, forearm under the shoulder. Pretty much a straight line from shoulder, hip, and knees. And then Bruce, I want you to straighten out your top leg. Good. And then you're going to lift your hips up off the floor as high as you can. Lift your top leg off the ground. Raise this arm up to the ceiling. And then think, get this hip, get your top hip as close to the ceiling as you can. Where do you feel this the most, Bruce?
Probably in my left hip, I would say.
Left glute, right? It's going to feel something in those obliques too. But this version of side plank really hits the glute hard. It's going to help develop stability for better range of motion at your hip. Okay? Now let's flip around. So let's get your head down that way. Okay? So again, we want to see knees pretty much in line with the hips. Let's straighten out this leg. Yep, let's get this off the floor. Raise your left arm up to the ceiling. Now, Bruce, lift up. Get your left hip as close to the ceiling as you can. Okay? All right, tight, deep breaths here. Don't hold your breath. All right, and this you don't have to hold. If you're just starting on this, you can just lift up and down. Hold 5 seconds, 10 seconds. We're going to go about 15 seconds here. All right, another deep breath in. Lift that left hip high on the exhale. Squeeze your quads. Get really feel it in this right glute, and then lower. Okay? So we got to work on our core strength. We got to work on our stability. A lot of you guys I know with back pain have good intentions. You do a lot of stretching. You may even do some foam rolling. But what 90% of people are missing is this type of stuff, right? We have to build strength in our glutes. We have to learn how to activate our core. And when we combine that with foam rolling, with stretching, with traditional, what you would think as mobility exercises, then we start to get really good results. Hips get looser. The lower back starts feeling better. Let's retest, Bruce. Let's get you back up. So when we started this test, Bruce was about 15, 20 degrees shy of 60 degrees of hip turn, which is about here, right? So let's get your left foot forward a little bit more, okay? And you're going to rotate 3 times to the right. 1, feel looser?
Yeah, definitely.
2, and 1 more as far as you can go. Okay, all right. So he's rotating past 60 degrees now. Now what I'll say is, after doing the foam rolling, maybe after doing the stretching, definitely, you probably would have got there. However, by working on the core, the abdominals, the glutes, right, we know that range of motion is likely to stick and not just go away. So make sure you don't skip those last 2 exercises. Again, just to summarize, if you have lower back pain, chances are you need to work on your hip mobility and strength. Foam rolling, stretching, glute strengthening, abdominals, oblique strengthening, all going to help make that lower back feel much freer in your swing because the hips are going to be doing what they should be doing, which is rotating better. All right, if you guys have any questions, please comment below. Thanks for watching.